Something interesting happened on the internet this week related to the comic and show Invincible, which led me to ask another question that I find really interesting, and I want to talk about both. First up, I'm going to speed through the Invincible thing, because this has been a weird week for the show. For people that are watching this in the future, we're right between episodes 4 and 5, so episode 4 is called Herm, it is the one in Hell, and it's the first one that is an original story for the show. It's not based on an episode of the comic. Obviously, a bunch of the characters are from the comics, but it is not part of the original run of the books, and for that reason, some fans didn't love it. So whatever, it doesn't matter, because episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 are going to be crazy, and I'm sure in a week, we won't even remember the Herm episode. But there was another thing that happened on Invincible Twitter. And for people who only know it through the show, perhaps, or don't know either and just want to listen to me talk about this, which, hey, it's great to have you here too. Invincible, the comic, and then like the concept for the show, mainly gets credited to 3 people. There's Robert Kirkman, who is the writer. There's Cory Walker, who is the artist for, I think, 20 books, and also designed a bunch of the characters. And then you got Ryan Ottley, who is the artist for the majority of the run. There were a couple different colorists throughout the run of the books, but basically, like, those 3 guys, they're the guys. And I can't say as much for Cory Walker, but Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley, pretty accessible. Robert Kirkman does a lot of interviews, and he's very involved with the creation of the show, obviously, because this new episode was by him. And Ryan Ottley, you see him on Twitter from time to time, doing things like answering fan questions or like publicizing an auction they're doing for charity. So like cool stuff. And while being a creator of something and being very online, it can be a little risky. It can come with some challenges. It's also very rewarding. But okay. So Ryan Ottley is answering a question from a fan, and he gets a question from a different fan in the reply. This is from someone named Pota Norimaki, who is on Twitter and I believe also a YouTuber, and he just puts up 2 pictures, says was this intentional. The first is Invincible in his black and blue costume. This was his second like big Invincible costume, very iconic. Well, I don't know, he wears a couple of costumes because he has the one that's like the bandana. It doesn't matter. Then the second image is a negative of that first image. But what's interesting about it is the black in Mark's costume flips to white, and the blue in Mark's costume flips to red, and it looks a lot like the costume worn by his dad, Omni-Man, who, spoilers for the first episode of the first season of the show, and like the general conceit of the show, and all of the memes you've already seen, is the bad guy. He's a Superman figure, but turns out to be a conquering alien, much like what I guess Kal-El's parents wanted him to do in the Superman movie. Isn't that interesting? But I'm not going to spoil Invincible, by the way. Don't worry about me telling you things that happen beyond that in Invincible, because like it's a really cool show. I own the books. I have not read them. I'm going to wait until the show is done, and then I'm going to read all the books. I'm reading the Battle Beast comic that's coming out now alongside the books, but like it's fun. So the person, I'm not sure if Pota saw this online or made this observation himself. I wouldn't be surprised if this is an observation many people have made before, and he just brings it up to Ryan Ottley. And Ryan Ottley comes back a little hot, quote tweets it with, "Of course not," follows that with, "Read Invincible, that's the proof. Omni-Man's colors are red and blue. Makes no sense, we'd know it'd be changed to white for the show, so we do all the inverting years before. It's nonsensical." Got a little bit of heat for that. Later that day, posts another tweet, "Haha, I'm sorry, I had no idea this would cause such a shock. Red and white is definitely my favorite. Almost all my con sketches have his suit in red and white. Of course, that's mainly because for years, I'd only bring red with me to cons." So like, yeah. First lesson, the lesson about this conversation is that like if you were a creator and a fan reaches out to you and they're not being like hostile, they're not being like, "You did a bad job and I've got a better one," or like, "You're so stupid, you didn't even realize this." If it's just this question, you probably want to validate them a little bit, and you probably don't want to like say like, "You haven't read the books, you know, it's nonsense." And I'm sure Ryan Ottley figured that out, but it got a lot of the Invincible community thinking like, but wait, that was blue? Because if you look at it on paper, it is clearly not white. Like in the original comic, there's plenty of shots where Omni-Man is standing in front of a white background or something white, and that thing looks white, and his suit looks like a blue. It's a light blue, not incredibly saturated one, like the one in Mark's costume, or even the one in Immortal's costume. But like, technically that is blue. However, as someone who knew Invincible first through the show, and I have read Invincible comics, like I haven't read all of them, but I've read through individual issues, and I've seen that Omni-Man. But because I think I was introduced to it as a red and white costume, it never clicked to me that that just wasn't supposed to be white. And it comes back to this idea that sometimes color is conveyed strangely in comics. Like for instance, that shot where he's in front of a white background. Maybe they just didn't want his shirt to be the same color as the background, so they did it like a little different. Maybe it's supposed to be lit by maybe a blue light or something, and that's why it's blue in that shot. And comics, especially ones drawn and colored by different people, are incredibly inconsistent with different characters' costume colors or skin tones, which is a way bigger problem. Like people have this problem with Sunspot all the time. But I think it's interesting because I wanted to make a video just about this stuff. But I was like, all right, well, I want to get a good example for people that don't know too much about Invincible, aren't familiar with the comics. Maybe there's something else that I can kind of relate this to, like a similar thing that happened in comics. So I go, oh, of course. Spider-Man. And Spider-Man famously, and we all know this, he has a costume that is red and blue. However, in at least his original debut, back in Amazing Fantasy 15, his costume was red and black. Like, sure, it had some blue accents on it, but it was a black costume. Because, like, that must be what that looked like, right? Because when they made the Spider-Man movie, when they made Far From Home, they gave him a costume that seemed to be like that costume, and it was red and black. Or when they made the Amazing Fantasy 15 Spider-Man Marvel Legend, they made it red and black. So it's like, okay, what probably happened was, it was originally red and black. For whatever reason, they didn't like that. Maybe a later colorist thought they were going for blue, and they changed it to blue. That became iconic. They stuck with it. So I wanted to find that. I wanted to find a quote where someone explained it. And the people that would have had to explain it would be Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, or Stan Lee. Those are like the three guys that would know. They are all currently dead. And I could not, for the life of me, find a definitive quote where one of them is asked this question and they give an answer. What I think the narrative I had always heard was, Spider-Man was originally red and black, because he's the color of a spider. Black Widow spider, red and black. Those are also the colors of Black Widow. But then when the character really hit and they wanted to turn it into more of a family-friendly thing, they added the blue because primary colors signify that the character's a good guy. And, you know, it's not like the black didn't have a little bit of blue in it, so it wasn't a humongous change. And also, like comics, especially ones back in the day, were incredibly inconsistent when it comes to this stuff. Forget about Hulk and like, oh, he was originally supposed to be this color, but they printed this color, and then they kind of went with it. Just look at the cover of X-Men 4, I believe, Uncanny X-Men 4, where for some reason, Wanda, Scarlet Witch, is just green. She's wearing just a green costume. It does not look like that in the book. It just seems to be a communication error or something. I mean, the character's name is the Scarlet Witch, so you kind of assume whoever's putting the colors on that would know what color it's supposed to be. But still, like, if you just referenced her first appearance on the cover of a comic, Scarlet Witch should be green, and she's not. But apparently, this is a topic of much contention among Spider-Man fans. Some fans believe that it was always red and blue, and it was black with the blue accents because it was backlit or something like that. You were only getting color on the side. I don't know if that image completely sells that because there's clearly some shadow on the guy's shirt, but whatever. And to prove this, you would show an image of like Daredevil in his original costume. Clearly, his shirt is supposed to be red. It's not a black shirt, but it is a black version of the shirt with red accents. But then if you look at a character like Black Panther, the Black Panther outfit is clearly supposed to be black, and it is colored the same way that Spider-Man's costume is colored in that issue. I know what you're thinking. Who cares? You know, why are you trying to prove this one way or another? Because I just think it's interesting. Like, this is one of the most iconic characters in fiction created in the last century, right? Last 100 years. Everybody on Earth knows who Spider-Man is. The same way that everybody on Earth knows who Batman and Superman are. And yet, there is no debate. If you look at the original Superman, what color is supposed to be? This is a Spider-Man problem. And you can look at the text itself, you can look in the book, and you can say, as this person Thomas Metz did on the website Spider-Man Crawl Space, which seems to be a blog about Spider-Man, that there are shots where Spider-Man's costume is on screen with something else that is colored the same way, but we know that's blue, right? A cop uniform is blue. So when Spider-Man is talking to this cop, shouldn't we assume his shirt is also blue? Then it's like, wait, if the base of his costume is blue, he has a big blue spider on his back. That makes way more sense if his costume is black with a blue spider than a different color blue spider on his back. And the more you get into it, and maybe this is just a Marvel thing, this becomes very confusing for a lot of the original Marvel characters. Like Bullseye in his first appearance. He has the black and blue thing going. I always assumed Bullseye is in a black and white outfit. Sometimes people put some blue on his outfit, but I assume the base Bullseye outfit is supposed to be black and white. But the language of the coloring is inconsistent. I mean, hell, Image and Marvel just put out a reprint of the Marvel Team-Up issue where Spider-Man meets Invincible, and on that cover, he's wearing a black suit. Not even a little blue on it. The most definitive answer to this I could find comes from a documentary on the BBC done by Jonathan Ross, the TV presenter, called In Search of Steve Ditko. And it is a quote from Jonathan Ross. This is about, because the other thing you learned when you're looking this up is not only was the original color kind of confusing, it's also nowhere near what Steve Ditko wanted for Spider-Man. And I think that's kind of fun. So here's the quote. Just read the whole thing. I said, look, I might go and try to visit Steve just for the hell of it. I've got the crew with me. And he said, okay, I'll come along. So we went together and we went upstairs. I had that pile of books for me, which I've been using in the interviews a little bit to talk about, you know, some stuff that didn't get used. So I said that, Steve, I said, have you got any old work? Do you want this? I offered him the Amazing Fantasy 15. He went, oh. And he looked at it and he told me, you know, they got the colors wrong. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when I drew that, when I came up with the costume, I wrote that it should be orange and purple. And I think, and this is quoting Jonathan Ross here, and I might have imagined the next bit, he might have said there's another guy who's blue and red, which we assume was Superman. So it seems like originally Spider-Man was envisioned as a horror character, so they gave him the bad colors. They gave him orange and purple, which are secondary colors. There's so many Spider-Man villains that have either orange or purple. Probably one that has both, right? A lot of purple and greens. A couple of oranges, but they're like orange and black or orange and blue. I'm trying to think of it, and I'm sure there's an incredibly obvious one that are just like staring me in the face. But I, for the life of me, cannot think of an orange and purple Spider-Man villain. Anyway, that's like the common design philosophy. Good guys, primary colors, bad guys, secondary colors. But then, according to Jonathan Ross, when talking about Amazing Spider-Man 15, Steve Ditko compared it to Superman, and specifically the colors blue and red. So it does seem like, according to Steve Ditko now, at the time, he thought Spider-Man was red and blue, which honestly was not where I expected this question to end, is that Steve Ditko kind of thought it looked like Superman. And like I said, the three men you would ask about this are dead, so we can't. I am partially making this video so I can put out a call into the ether. So comment if you see this on YouTube, tweet me if you see this on Nebula. Let me know if you have an idea or proof or whatever, some sort of theory onto what color Spider-Man originally was, especially if you can think of something that like supersedes the Jonathan Ross interview that would suggest that Steve Ditko thought it was red and blue. Because I thought I knew what colors it was, and I was clearly at least confused. And you know what, speaking of blue, I was watching a video the other day by Lindsay, one of my favorite creators, called Bluey Adults, and it's just about the phenomenon of adults who like Bluey. Why did they like Bluey? How did they maybe take it too far? And as someone who has no children and has never watched an episode of Bluey, I find the whole thing fascinating. So you can find that video along with all my videos, early and ad-free, and tons of other videos exclusively on this video sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is, say it with me, a subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of other really cool people helped create. Nebula has evolved so much over the last 7 years. Sure, you can still watch all my videos early and ad-free. You can watch videos by a bunch of other creators you probably already love. But one of the most exciting things about Nebula is our original programming. Tom Scott has a new series called England, where he goes to every English county to find something interesting. Did you check out this first episode where Tom Scott goes to Leicestershire and he visits a bell making factory? You see the entire process, learn how bells are made, and it is not how you would expect, especially since this bell making factory is hundreds of years old and they're still working with some of the same techniques from a century ago. Tom Scott even gets to use a sledgehammer to break one of the bells a little, because shockingly, it's hard to do. It's hard to use a sledgehammer to break an enormous bell. And each episode of England is going to be on Nebula for a week before it goes anywhere else. On top of that, we got a series that I love watching called Abolish Everything, where someone, maybe a comedian, maybe another YouTuber, makes an argument for something that should be abolished. They state their case, they make a very funny PowerPoint, the political establishment gets to weigh in, and then the audience decides what deserves to actually be abolished. This week they did the championship for the second season. They had a ton of really funny people on it. I've never been on that show, maybe sometime in the future. I think I'd be a fun abolitionist. And then later this year, although hopefully not too much later, Nebula's first original dramatic scripted series, Subliminal, comes out with the episode that I wrote, which I cannot wait for you guys to watch. Nebula is the best way to support all of the creators you already love and all the creators you don't know you're gonna love, but then you're gonna love them when you see them on Nebula. You can also download the videos to your phone, which saves you data when you're not at home. And there are not AI videos on Nebula, so this isn't gonna be like YouTube where you go on and you watch a video in a minute or two and you're like, something's off here, and then you realize like, oh, this video is AI. Which happens on YouTube and other platforms way more than I would like to admit. Nebula, we all got real stuff made by real creators, and that's why it's great. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year, $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for just $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an amazing deal. Again, go to go.nebula.tv/nandoviamovies to check it out. So thank you for watching this video. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you around.